All right, this is end of May, and we're standing at about 5,800 feet in the old scar of the Pier Fire. This is the end of an old logging road. This is the very end where they've done their backhaul operation and left the trees and whatnot. And just showing some of the regrowth in this area. Some of this is where we had the natural fire coming up the hill from Tule River and Highway 190 down here at the bottom of the hill. I'm looking basically due south right now. If you're seeing the rock formations down there, that's in the lower part of the 190. And so this burned fairly hot up in here. You can see tree mortality probably greater than 50% in this little forest. But look down here on the road. This is miner's lettuce, some kind of fern, lots of little grasses, wildflowers like crazy. And yet then you can see where there have been hotter areas that have damaged the soil more and killed off the seeds. But this part of the fire really looks beautiful. Again, about 3 years after the Pier Fire. And so as we walk this back, one thing that will become obvious is we'll get into the Sequoia fire burn, and then also in an area that was set intentionally as kind of a backfire for fighting the Pier Fire. And then you'll see the tree mortality goes way down, and it looks a lot different. So here's one of those examples of kind of where the hotter fire burned, and so you can even see where it is void of wildflower regrowth. I suppose there's a slight possibility this was some kind of spot fire that came down from the Sequoia fire, because I'm still seeing leaves on this manzanita dead, but the fact that it died with its leaves on tells me this hasn't been here necessarily 3 years. Usually in 3 years the leaves kind of come off of things. So another little spot fire thing right in here. But this is all part of the end of this logging road, and there is a roadblock coming up here in a little while, and I'll pause for a while and pick this back up once I get to the other side. So it appears we're at an interesting confluence of a few different things. Right here in the foreground are some sprouts of an oak, and then there's crispy leaves up here. So this tells me that this probably burned just in this last fire from September, in the Sequoia fire. And then you can see the land around here looks almost sterilized. There's just not a blade of grass or anything. And then you can see some of these annual shrubs are sprouting back up. But high tree mortality right here in this zone. Then this, on this side, appears to be where the Pier Fire was, and the flame length or char length on these trees goes up 20 feet or so, 30 feet, but these trees have been dead for a long time. So this is Pier Fire over on this side. Again, pretty high heat. This was probably the natural part of the fire, and where it met, and you can see over on this side where the trees are in much better shape, very low tree mortality. This is where the fire was set as more of a backfiring or firing out operation on a cool evening, letting the fire back down the hill. And you can see the charring on the bottom of the trees is much lower. But this again looks like a recent thing. They're still on these cedars. They're crispy. They're still on the tree. That tells me that that was only from this last year. So like I said, interesting confluence of fires here, and I think points to the fact that in doing a firing out operation on the right, prevented the fire that came in from up above. So this would be the Sequoia fire of 2020, came down this hill, and when it met this road where there was firing out operation from 3 years ago, look at the greenery that's come back down in this part of the forest. And so for this late part of May, really an incredible display of wildflowers. Small yellows, these purples, almost like a little star lily. Yellows here, purples, little yellow there. really dense greenery down here, super lush and green. And then notice the char on these only goes up 5, maybe 10 feet on most of these trees, which would be typical from a firing out operation. And the trees still look pretty healthy above. Not much mortality in here at all. Only some of these small cedars appear to have not survived the base heat. So as I progress a little bit further here, I'm coming back into a creek canyon. Things get a lot cooler. Even the Sequoia fire dropping in from the left didn't touch down into this canyon quite like the other ones do. What a beautiful hike. This is, I think, one of the most beautiful spots now left after these two fires have run their course. And the interesting thing is the most beautiful hike is now where the two fires met each other. So this trailhead is located, let's see, about 2/3 of the way, so that would be about 2 miles up from Highway 190 and about a mile before you get to Alpine Village. Yeah, look at this. These are all thimbleberries and currants, looking just lush and green. That's about 60 degrees in here and a beautiful spot. All right, so just past the creek and coming up the other side over closer to Redwood Drive and seeing some other fun wildflowers and plants. And what you're seeing is on the left where it has neither burned from the Sequoia fire or the Pure fire, and on the right what appears to be where they did their firing out operation 3 years ago. So this is the most lush, but up in here you can see a lot more ground fuels, down logs, and then old branches and whatnot. And then over here, a little bit younger. Again, lots of wildflowers, just beautiful. So back down in here, just full of green, lots of birds chirping. So I'm coming out of the end of this road for this beautiful walk, and this is where it meets Redwood Drive. So you can see that the fire was rather intense on the other side of Redwood Drive with nearly 100% tree mortality. It tried to jump down into this side, but this is where it had all been fired off a couple years ago. So you can really see the dramatic difference. But you can see where there's already some sprouts coming back in, especially around right there in the foreground. That's oak. These right here are all oak that are sprouting. The cedars and firs are going to be a long time coming back. But it just shows an interesting view of hope, I guess, that maybe in a few years it'll be looking more like this.